This movie, adapted from Sigrid Nunez's acclaimed novel, promises a poignant exploration of grief, companionship, and the lingering echoes of a complicated life. Instead, it delivers a frustratingly tepid drama that flattens its emotional potential into a predictable, overly polished slog. Naomi Watts stars as Iris, a writer and professor thrust into the orbit of her late mentor Walter, played by Bill Murray, not through his lingering wisdom, but via the unwieldy inheritance of his Great Dane, Apollo. What could have been a raw and messy dive into loss and healing becomes a sanitized pet bonding tale that leans too hard on its canine crutch, leaving its human characters and deeper themes stranded. The setup has promise. Iris, reeling from Walter's suicide, navigates a tangle of his ex-wives, a mysterious daughter, and an unfinished book of his correspondences, all while facing eviction from her rent-controlled West Village apartment due to Apollo's presence. Walter, a charismatic yet flawed figure with a history of questionable relationships, casts a shadow that should loom large. Yet the film squanders this complexity, relegating Murray to a handful of scenes that hint at his magnetism, but never fully ignite. Instead, the focus shifts to Apollo, whose mournful eyes and lumbering frame dominate the screen, often to the detriment of any real narrative depth. The dog is undeniably affecting, but his role as a stand-in for Walter's absence feels like a literary gimmick that the movie can't quite justify on screen. Watts does her best with a restrained, earnest performance, capturing Iris's quiet turmoil as she juggles her grief, her career, and the chaos Apollo brings. But the script hands her little to work with, beyond a repetitive cycle of canine-related inconveniences and muted introspection. The supporting cast fares even worse, reduced to one-note figures who drift in and out without leaving a mark. The film gestures at thorny issues like Walter's predatory past with students or the fallout of his suicide, but shies away from grappling with them, opting for a glossy veneer that feels more evasive than tasteful. At nearly 2 hours, the movie drags under the weight of its own indecision. Moments of levity aim for charm but land as mild diversions, while the heavier beats, including a late therapy session that spoon-feeds Iris's epiphany, feel forced and formulaic. The pacing is languid, the tone syrupy, and the dialogue often stilted, as if the characters are reciting a self-help book rather than living through their pain. Even the film's central metaphor, Iris and Apollo healing each other, lands with a thud, spelled out so explicitly it robs the story of any subtlety or surprise. Visually, the movie crafts a pleasant enough purgatory, with Apollo's massive presence contrasting Iris's cramped apartment. But this aesthetic tidiness mirrors the film's broader flaw, an unwillingness to embrace the unkempt reality of grief. Where the novel reportedly wove in literary musings and existential heft, the adaptation strips those away, leaving a skeletal tale that's too timid to provoke or move. By the time Iris spends a contrived fantasy confrontation with Walter, staged with jarring literalness, it's clear the movie has lost the thread, trading nuance for a clunky resolution that neither satisfies nor challenges. This movie isn't a disaster. It's competently made and occasionally touching, thanks to Watts and the dog's chemistry. But competence isn't enough when the stakes feel this small and the execution this safe. For a story about loss, legacy, and the bonds that tether us, it's oddly forgettable. A noble misfire that mistakes neatness for profundity and leaves you wishing for a sharper bite. It's not worth to watch this in theaters. Just wait on your streaming service.